Welcome to the Palace of Versailles, located in what once was a small village outside Paris, France. The principal architect was Louis Leval with the help of many other designers including André Le Notre and Charles Lebrun. The first king to inhabit Versailles was King Louis XIX. 3 generations of kings and queens lived there until the monarchy was destroyed during the French Revolution. The last king to inhabit the palace was King Louis XXI and Marie Antoinette. Each king and queen that resided in Versailles made additions to the architecture during their inhabitance. Here we have the Hall of Mirrors, designed by Lebrun using symbolism to glorify the political, economic, and artistic success of France. Lebrun exemplifies political success through his use of 30 compositions in the arch paintings of the ceiling, illustrating the glorious history of Louis XIX. He exemplifies economic success through the dimensions and quality of the 357 mirrors, attesting to the luxury object that was a creation stolen from Venice. Lastly, he demonstrated the artistic success of France, using marble pilasters decorated with a model of gilded bronze capitals representing the national emblems. The Hall of Mirrors followed closely on its north side by the Salon of War. The War Room, which was built by Mansardi in 1678, is also known as the Salon de la Guerre. The War Room has art depicting the king's victory against a European coalition in a war that ran from 1688 to 1697. The decorations inside the rooms, however, were not completed by Mansardi. Lebrun created large altarpieces and battle pieces that were placed within the War Room, many of which are still on display at Versailles today. The work Lebrun did in the War Salon glamorizes the military victories that led up to the peace. The walls of the salon are covered in marble panels, and there are 6 trophies and gilded bronze carvings. France had grown as a nation through combats against its internal and external enemies. It was henceforth glorious, serene, and ready to enter a new era founded on peace and prosperity. The architecture of the gallery is designed by Frederic Nepoix. King Louis entrusted him with the creation of the Museum of the History of France, the Battles Gallery being the largest in the museum. The gallery is designed as a pantheon of French glory because it presents a series of 80 busts of famous officers killed in combat, along with bronze plaques bearing the names of many other illustrious figures, along with 33 paintings depicting the battles of France. The palace, as mentioned previously, served as a home for 3 generations of kings and queens. The king's apartment was composed of 3 salons, including the Hercules Salon, the Abundance Salon, and the Venus Salon. The queen's grand apartment is symmetrical with the king's apartment. However, unlike King Louis XIX, who gave up his grand apartment, the queen continued to occupy hers, which explains why the decor was changed several times during the 18th century. The Queen's apartment contains the Queen's chambers, the noble salon, the grand couvent, and the guard room. In a French monarchy, the king was said to be chosen by God, and through his coronation become his lieutenant on earth. Delayed by the war, the chapel was opened in 1689 by Hardon Mansart. The paintings and the sculptures in the chapel at Versailles evoke the idea of a series which starts at the nave and ends at the gallery where the king would sit. The pillars of the nave angels are represented carrying the instruments of the Passion of the Christ leading to his death. Mansart expresses the splendor of the resurrection using a triangular symbol incorporating Hebrew writing. In the half dome above the organ, Christ appears in the glory of the resurrection. Then on the vault, the Father, and finally above the gallery, the descent of the Holy Spirit, the third person of the Holy Trinity, symbolized by a dove which must inspire the king's actions. During the 19th century, the Republican regime was hesitant. France was not safe from attempts to restore the monarchy. Versailles was chosen to host the new National Assembly elected in 1871. The young Republic, or Congress Room, became the seat of power filled with decor glorifying the Sun King. Marie Antoinette, a teenage queen, embraced in 1770 after 23 years in a seat of power, was beheaded by guillotine. The estate located at the Palace of Versailles consists of the Petit Trianon, the Queen's Theatre, the Orangery, the Queen's Hamlet, and the Grand Trianon, as well as clusters of small buildings. In Marie's Trianon domain, which was provided to her by King Louis XXI in 1774, Antoinette made a haven that was very private, enabling her to escape from the rigors of court etiquette. The reinstatement of the compound, which contains original architecture, uses enclosing walls, gates, grills, and soie de loup, a wolf's jump, creating an illusion that the Petit Trianon domain is guarded, a preserved place centered on a chateau. This arrangement shows the eclecticism and refinement of Marie Antoinette and her art of living linked to free thinking. The spirit of enlightenment was exemplified well in the estate's lavish design. In 1672, Louis XIX ordered the architect Louis Levat to build the first Trianon palace. He spent time there to get away from the royal court with his mistresses. This porcelain Trianon, as it was known, was built out of ceramic tiles, which deteriorated quickly. 15 years later, the king ordered its demolition, so that it could be replaced by a new residency made out of pink marble, now known as the Marble Trianon or the Grand Trianon, which also had a new garden built alongside of it. This palace is considered a compositional model of architecture that displays the 18th century's most sophisticated style in the estate of Versailles. In 1687, Mansart built the Grand Trianon, easily considered the most refined group of buildings located in Versailles. Mansart closely followed the specifications of Louis XIX, who was deeply involved in the design process. The Grand Trianon embodies classical French design and was inspired by Italian architecture. It is made up of a large palace and an ensemble of geometric gardens, including numerous fountains. In 1661, Louis XIX commissioned André Le Notre with the design of the gardens of Versailles, which from the king's point of view were equally as important as the chateau itself. But Le Notre was not alone in the work. Jean Colbert directed the project from 1664 to 1683. Lebrun produced the drawings for a large number of statues and fountains, and Mansart drew up the scenic plans, including construction of the orangery. Lastly, the king had all the projects submitted to him and wanted the details of everything. Attractions of the garden include Le Notre's design of two large rectangular pools that reflect the sunlight and light up the facade of the Hall of Mirrors. The gardens are crisscrossed by a network of rectangular pathways laid out according to a geometric plan. They are known as the walks, including the Bacchus and Saturn walk, which is themed by bronze sculpture. Other sculptures in the garden include bronze statues symbolizing the four great sea-going rivers of France. Much of the work in the gardens is characterized by Grecian and Roman mythology. Located in the garden is a sun basin for Apollo, as well as a representation of the four seasons and their attributes in Grecian sculpture design. This concludes my presentation of the Palace of Versailles. We explored the rooms included in the palace itself, the estate of Marie Antoinette, and the gardens of Versailles. Hopefully we will get a chance to marvel at the architectural beauty that is Versailles in the future. Until then.